Are you sufficiently lubed, Ryan?
Which lips?
Bitch lips. What would you say?
Which lips?
Hello there. Welcome to On the Beat, the podcast that uncovers full frontal male nudity in cinema. My name is Laura, and I am joined by my one, the only co-host that we have here today, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. I awoke from my New Year's slumber, and this film put me right back into that slumber.
And that sleepy film is the 2012 drama 28 Hotel Rooms, in the grand tradition, of course, of films starting with the number 28.
Yes, it is. There's zombies in hotel rooms, and there's 28 of them.
And they're all needing to go to rehab.
They're all in unrequited relationships, and they kind of sit and talk about it for a very long time.
Yeah.
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 I want brains and commitment, you know.
Yeah, so just so we're clear on
Yes.
this podcast, this is not a 28 Days Later.
Yeah,
which was
Danny
episode-
Boyle didn't have anything to do with this one.
That was episode 7 of this podcast. It's
Yeah.
not 28 Weeks Later, and it is not the Sandra Bullock rehab movie, 28 Days.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize there was another one.
That's why I
love
said
that.
rehab.
Yeah, they love. I mean, you know why they call things after the number 28 because of 28 Days Later. I mean, that's obviously the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
fine. I don't know if there's a significance to the number 28.
Who knows?
I know there's a significance to the number 42.
Did we count the number of transitions in this movie if there was actually 28?
If there isn't, then I'm going to have a problem. I
Okay.
trust that there were 28 different situations.
28 different rooms.
28 different rooms.
Right, okay.
So, the synopsis of this film, real quick, even though this is a horrifically long synopsis pulled from Letterboxd,
Oh, great.
is... Okay, I'm ready. While traveling for work in a city far from their homes, a novelist and a corporate accountant find themselves in bed together. It's like, whoops. What are you doing here? Oh, hold on, there's more. Although she's married and he's seeing someone, their intense attraction turns a one-night stand into an unexpected relationship and a respite from the obligations of daily life.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm not done.
Oh,
Though a series of moments, some profound, some silly, some intensely intimate, we see a portrait of an evolving relationship that could become the most significant one of their lives. Yeah, that's very long. This is a
It's
film
long,
about
yeah.
an affair
Yeah, pretty
between
much.
a couple of people who maybe aren't the best people.
no. I mean, I think from initially meeting them at the beginning of the movie, there's a distinct lack of attraction, certainly to Chris, is it Messian?
Messina.
Oh, Messina. Messian. Where did I get that
Chris
from?
Messian? I don't know. Because this
Anyway,
is a messy film.
Yeah, this is a real Messina. I mean, to put it kind of flatly, it's a series of conversations in hotel rooms between these two characters. We never see any other characters. So it's literally we are subjected to the ins and outs of this affair, and we are kind of given highlights into what's happening in their other private lives as they are meeting to cohort with each other in these hotel rooms. That's really all it is. That's really all this film is.
Yeah,
Which isn't a bad thing. It's just a little bit dull.
There is a good movie in there somewhere, I'm sure.
Potentially. But it's an incredibly... The word sleepy, I think, aptly describes this film to an absolute T.
Yes.
I do think it's shot relatively quite well. I think Doug Emmett, the cinematographer behind this film, you know, who shot things like Paranormal Activity 4. I think he's done. I think he's done it. I think he's done a decent job of trying to make what looks like it's maybe 5 or 6 rooms that they had access to, and they make sure the camera is in a different corner each time, in order to make best use out of these rooms. But yeah.
There are 20 different rooms, by the way.
Oh, okay. Right. Well, I
Or
was wrong.
20, my apologies, 20 different hotels. 20 specific hotels that they used. And some
Right.
of the hotels, they were able to get 2 or 3 rooms out of it, depending on what it looked like from the outside, if you had a different view, or, some of the rooms were set up differently. So 20
Yeah.
hotels.
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of what it feels like. I mean, this is an incredibly low budget film, or at least it appears to be a low budget movie. I think they try their best with the way it kind of looks. The tone of the film kind of reminded me a little bit of Code 46 and another movie called Upstream Color. So it kind of has it, but they're not as It's not as interesting as those movies because they're kind of like sci-fi-esque movies. But the tone and the style kind of reminded me of those slightly better films.
Yeah, that's... So I want to get into Matt Ross, who's the director of this film, but
Exactly.
we were saying that Chris Messina is in this film, and there's just 2 people in it. We see
Yeah.
other people, maybe bar patrons at the hotel bar,
Maids, hotel staff.
but that's it. We don't meet
That's
any of
really
the
it.
other characters. So the woman in this film is Marin Ireland, and they don't have names. They're
No.
just woman and man. Marin Ireland, she has a really, really strong background in stage. That's where she met Chris Messina doing a show in New York called Far Away back in 2002. It was just the 2 of them with Frances McDormand. That's how
Okay.
they met and became friends. So they've been friends for ages.
Mhm.
Chris Messina, he
Is it
is
a
in
bunch of stuff? Yeah.
so many
Yeah.
things.
He's in You've Got Mail and things like that.
He's naked in another film called Digging for Fire, which is a 2015 film by Joe Swanberg.
That doesn't.
Joe
seem-
Swanberg, his catalog could fill up a whole year of our podcast. The Year of the Swan. Well, maybe we'll never do that, but he's got a lot of movies with penises in them. So
Okay.
good
well,
for
I mean,
him.
yeah, we might be able to if we want to do a like the year of Swanberg.
Yeah.
The year the swan came in.
The Year of the Swan came home to roost
Yes, came
and dropped all the penises
It
everywhere.
flew by and dropped a big sack of dongs right on your fat head. Yeah.
So Matt Ross is a really interesting person to have as the director of this film. And
Okay.
we've talked about him a lot because obviously we're doing this podcast, and you as a director and as a filmmaker, Ryan, I think it's
Right.
interesting because he's an actor.
Well, yeah, he started off as an actor.
I mean, you can do more than one thing. I'm just saying, we know Matt Ross, a general audience typically as an actor.
I'll bring up some of his acting roles when we
I kn-
talk about him a little bit.
Well, yeah, I know him as Gavin Belson from Silicon Valley.
Okay.
I've seen him in a million other things, but I'll give it to you.
Okay. So we're talking about Matt Ross, or if you weren't aware, his full name is Matthew Brandon Ross, in case you were unaware of what Matt was short for. But he is seen as an actor, director, and screenwriter, and somewhat come cinematographer. But that's because he shot like one of his shorts or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So he's best known probably as an actor, right? So let's just say you brought up Gavin Belson for Silicon Valley. I had that written down. He's also Glenn Oldkirk in The Aviator, that Martin Scorsese picture.
Oh, yes.
Very memorable film. And he also plays, and probably more famously, at least to me, he played Lewis Carruthers in American Psycho. And we
Yes.
rewatched that scene before we started this, so I could like reacquaint myself with who Matthew is.
Where he kisses Patrick Bateman's hand.
Yes.
I love
yes,
it.
he did.
I love that movie.
But his filmography as a director is relatively quite small, as you might imagine. starts off in 97 with The Language of Love, which is the short film, which he probably shot. I can't really remember. Human Resources, which is also a short, which was in 2009. And then obviously we have the film that we're talking about today, which is 28 Hotel Rooms in 2012. But then there's also Captain Fantastic in 2016. This is a Ross-a-thon.
This is our New Year's Ross-o-lution.
This is a, ooh, Jesus.
Yeah, I did it.
God.
I came up with that just on the fly. It's my New Year's Matt Ross-o-lution. We're going to do a double. We're going to talk about Captain Fantastic, which is a much more famous film than this one, but you got to start somewhere.
You have to start.
You got to have a feature debut, you know?
Like most stories, like most affairs, you have to start at the beginning.
Usually.
I've not finished talking about Ross.
Oh.
Or
all
Matt
right,
Ross.
Sorry, I just wanted to talk about the Ross-o-lution.
Matthew. Well, no, he's... Oh, jeez, right. So anyway, as a filmmaker, right, as a director, he's also worked on episodes of Silicon Valley. You're such a derailer. You're like that, like, groups of thugs in the Western times when they used to drop, like, metal pipes on train tracks so they could, like, rob the train after it derailed.
I'm taking over.
You're just taking everything away from me. I'm not happy about it. I wish things would have changed for 2023, but they obviously have not.
No, and it's just going to get worse.
You're still a parasitic entity that just saps away all the comedic energy from me. And
Aw.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, anyway. So, he's worked on Silicon Valley. And also, he's also been working on that Sean Penn, Julia Roberts series called Gaslit. As well, which I think he's maybe directed all the episodes for.
That looks like his cup of tea.
Okay, well, either way, there's that. But yeah, I mean, he's also an actor. I mean, he's also in 12 Monkeys. He's also in Face Off, and he's also in a movie called Pushing Tin, which I didn't think we'd ever bring up.
I really wish that you would never bring up that film.
That lovely Mike Newell joint. That movie. It's a comedy about life, love, airplanes, and other bumpy rides.
Ew. Don't bring up BBT in this house again.
I haven't got a problem with the Big Billy Bob. I think he's okay. But
keep bringing Billy Bob Thornton in this house. Keep bringing it up on the podcast. It's gonna make me mad.
Well, that covers Matthew. I've done everything with Matthew. And like you say, this is our New Year's Ross-o-lution.
Yes.
God, it's so bad. It's so awful.
It's so good.
So this is part 1. So we're doing 28 Hotel Rooms.
Yes, we've been talking about that already.
The sleepy directorial debut from Matthew Ross.
This film is an unrated film, but when we watched it, it's streaming on Tubi right now for free, and it says TVMA. And you can imagine why it is on the podcast. We are going to talk about a wiener. But this is it's a movie about an affair. And so you can imagine that every time they get into one of these 28 hotel rooms, they're having sex. So it's a very sex-heavy movie. I would not call this a sexy movie.
There's nothing really very sexy about it,
Everything's quite blue.
It's very kind of... it feels very bleached out. Like there's a lot of overexposure in the whites. But I guess like with that, there's a distinct level of like detail in the film. There's nothing groundbreaking in this. I mean, I'll kind of put that out there. Like there's nothing groundbreaking about it. It's very much at its heart low budget indie movie.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this movie is improvised as well. They had a script.
You don't say.
And but Matt Ross wanted the actors to kind of feel out their characters and change things on the fly if necessary, if it didn't feel right for their character, and so on and so forth.
As a result of that, though, it does feel a wee bit wandering. You know, I was kind of hoping to kind of be drawn into a lot of these musings and stuff that they have, but these characters are relatively unrelatable. Now, unless you're a novelist, and to me, I was like, this Chris Messina guy, he doesn't look anything like a fucking novelist. But then also with the other character, Ireland, there's nothing really particular, like at least for me anyway, there was nothing particularly attractive about either of them that I could latch on to and seemingly understand and feel like I was following their story.
Well, I think I can understand how you would set that up in the film. These are two people that are just attracted to each other physically, and it takes a long time for her to open up about herself and to open up about her life and her job. I mean, one of the first times we actually see them have a real full conversation, they're in bed together. And
Yeah.
he's asking her questions, and she doesn't want him to even really know her name or anything because I don't think she wants to get attached to this situation, which obviously doesn't go her way.
No.
But
No.
I mean, the movie it opens with sex. There's butts.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it opened with the oscilloscope logo.
It
Because
did.
this is part of the oscilloscope saga, as we're finally beginning to understand.
Yeah, our last movie is one of those as well.
Yeah, so it does it. It opens with, I mean, I was going to say hard sex.
Yeah.
It opens with a hard zipper pull where I was just like, wait, oh, hold on.
I know that
Don't
was
just do
a
that.
violent zipper pull.
Yeah.
She pulled it down. I go, you would worry. What if he's not wearing underwear? Or...
What if his dick was pressed against that zipper?
Yeah.
Because if he's ready for sexy times, he might have had a little bit of a boner.
Also, this is 2012. This is back in the day of
Has he
skinny
not-
jeans.
Yeah, has he not
What
seen?
if he had tight trousers on and it's all pressed up against there?
Could have
And you
been.
pull a there's something about Mary.
You doing there's something you just took what I was going to say. Yes, there's a something about Mary moment that could have potentially completely
you.
soured this affair.
You know, you said I was sucking all your jokes. There you go. I got you.
Exactly, like a fucking comedic leech.
And I do think that there is kind of a wibbly wobbly time element to this film. I don't think that it's complete. It obviously isn't completely chronological because it
No.
opens with a sexy time. And then it's like we're going to their first meeting, but we're not. When they have the chocolate explosion cake. Right? They see each other from
Oh,
across a hotel
God.
restaurant.
Yeah.
And he orders a chocolate explosion.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I like the fact that maybe like the film opens on their sexy time, right?
Rip.
And then it's the opening title, and then it's the meeting just before that sexy time.
Yeah, it runs fairly chronologically.
Because
I guess.
there's a
It just didn't. It's kind of weird.
There's an
parts
obvious passing of time of like
where
where
beards and
well, people are like facial hair is changing. Someone's wearing glasses. Obviously, someone's getting older. But there's also kind of this evolution of, you know, because they're having this affair, but they're also living their own lives outside of the affair. So obviously, one is married. She ends up having a child. Same with he ends up meeting someone and then ends up getting married. But they continue this liaison that they are meeting and going as. I guess they're traveling over the country because, I mean, as an accountant, do you find yourself traveling around the country quite a lot? I mean, I guess she goes to like seminars and things like that. She goes to those conferences, which I'm assuming would send you all over the country.
yeah. Matt Ross was saying that he wanted jobs specifically that would travel, so he picked that job for her character, which some sort of accountant for big businesses, and then
Right.
I do believe Chris Messina's job was different, originally written down, but the two of them collaborated on the script together.
Okay.
Matt Ross wrote it, but he collaborated with Chris Messina, and Messina was adamant that he wanted his character to be an artist.
Right.
So he picked author, which Matt Ross did not like.
I don't like it either.
He didn't
personally.
like it, but Messina
No.
was just
It felt like
persistent.
It felt like they'd gone with the artist thing up until the point of getting into wardrobe, and then they changed it at the very last minute, and then they start talking about their book. Because I'm sorry, and this is no offense to Messina, he doesn't look like he can write much.
Okay.
But I don't want us to gloss over the chocolate explosion, because when they first meet, and then Messina starts talking, and I'm just like, oh god, he's like a bro.
Yeah.
It's like,
A
yo,
bit.
you think is anyone sitting here? Is this seat free?
That's not what he sounded like at all. But
I mean, it's pretty much. He's like, oh, you speak English? It's like,
what he keeps asking her if there's anything good to eat there at this restaurant. I assume they're having dinner, but then he just orders a chocolate explosion cake, right?
which immediately makes you think of someone destroying a toilet bowl.
Yeah, like
with like like
violent
violent diarrhea.
violent chocolate explosion. Genuinely, it goes from this chocolate explosion cake straight into a shot of this young woman crying on the bathroom floor next to a toilet, which obviously you can only think one thing.
We had sex. He blew up my toilet with the chocolate explosion cake.
Why did I decide to have an affair with this diarrhea dude?
And she's been left in tears, like, with the smell, the atrocious smell.
That horrible chocolate explosion.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the reason she's crying is that she's come to the realization that she's cheated on her husband. Yeah. But I think that's really... There's a distinct lack of empathy from her side for any of these men in her life.
No, I mean, she cries all the time.
No, she doesn't.
She cries constantly. She says, I think I might be a horrible human being, and
I mean, she's
I
not
love
wrong.
him, and then there's times where she's saying that I should have left him ages ago, but then... Ryan, this movie has a scene where our main character talks about getting a blowjob as a child.
Oh, this is going quite far forward, isn't it? Hold on. Where is it?
Not really.
No, it's almost exactly... Well, I had an issue with Messina's necklace.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I wrote it way later in my notes because I thought that maybe through the time that we're spending with these characters, like over the years that they're having this affair, that he would lose the necklace, and he never did.
No, it's like he just continued to wear it. It was kind of like he was into crystals. And you know how we feel about people who are into crystals. But, well, here's the thing. The film... you immediately kind of feel like, oh, this must be improvised because they're not talking about anything that's interesting. And there's not really any sort of drama being developed. Like, there's no development within the story to give it a sense of drama other than just like, oh, we're having an affair, right? And it's like, well, okay, that's fine. But you never see the actual physical impact the affair has on anyone other than just them.
Yeah,
and
it's very focused.
You're just watching two selfish individuals try and deal with something that they're doing voluntarily. So, but they do have conversations. I mean, effectively, the film is just made up of them just having conversations about things that are relatively quite random, and some of it's about the relationship. Blah blah blah.
So it's pillow talk. It's pillow talk. It's the kind of weird conversations you have post-coital.
Yes.
And you kind of get to learn a little bit about each other. You ask about your sexy times.
We've all been there, yeah.
He
we'll
asks
talk
her,
about your dildo fantasies, your...
Ever been pegged?
Anything to do with the asshole usually comes up.
Why not?
What does it look like,
Do you have a photo?
Yeah, or like what happened, then you start examining genitals and stuff like that. Like, what does your dick look like when it's soft? That sort of thing.
Okay.
Like a little
or
mouse.
You could just ask, he asks her, have you ever been with a woman? And she says no. And he offers up this story about how when he was a boy...
Oh, this comes completely out of left field as well. They really kind of perked us up.
It was intriguing. He said when he was a boy and he would play G.I. Joes with his friend would nurse him back to health like he was a soldier by giving him a blowjob. And then he says something horrific.
Yeah.
Where he says that he couldn't come because he was too young.
Yes. And then it just cuts away to a different conversation. And you're like, what?
This movie has a conversation about little boys getting blowjobs, and it's like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a crazy thing to say.
The power of improv, people.
Yeah, maybe don't give them that much freedom, or keep it in the film.
Or cut it out. Or just cut that thing out, because obviously it's way too jarring. You can't have that still in the movie. I don't know. It's like if we had pillow talk and I was just like, yeah, well, one night I hunted down a homeless man and then I took his face and I wore it for about 24 hours. This was great, right?
I can't wait to see you again.
It's jarring. It's
it was
kind of
strange.
it's what you would expect the crux of your story to kind of stem from as well is, I guess, divulging trauma. as a
And
youngster.
you would, yeah, exactly. You would
So,
imagine that this would have opened up a conversation about childhood traumas,
yeah, like doubt.
but they don't. And they just change to a different room.
They just continue on.
La-di-da.
So I guess structurally, I guess this is an interesting thing to kind of put out there. But the way this film is kind of put together is, I guess every time there's a major scene change, the room number changes. So I guess that is what's illustrating the transition between all of these different hotel rooms, hence the transition of extending out time.
Yeah.
But that's just an editorial thing. That's just kind of how they tell this story.
There is also a scene in this film where he's painting her toes. I hate it so much. I hate a scene where a man is painting a woman's toes and it's meant to be intimate and romantic,
Yes.
but they don't know how to do it well. It's always bad.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if have you ever
And
done
who brings if you're on a trip, who brings polish with you?
I mean, to be honest, Laura, it feels like in the writing of this film in general, they've plucked out like what things that they can do, like actions they can enact for these certain scenes to kind of like stretch it out a little bit.
A massage?
I mean, I guess a massage.
Something like that you could do. They never did a massage with each other.
Have you never done anything? I remember doing that with an ex at some point.
You painted someone's toes?
Yeah.
Were you good at it?
I got better at it with a little bit of tuition. But the thing is, I mean, she also was like, she would also be like, well, that looks like crap. And I was like, well, why the fuck did you let me do it? Like, I mean, that's kind of the whole point. I was like, I'm sorry, it's rubbish.
It's not intimate. It's not romantic. It's
No.
weird.
And she also had like kind of gnarled, like toes. Because they keep on pointing it out to the point where like on a couple of her like tiny little toes, it doesn't look like she has any nails whatsoever. And
they use that in order for us to know that she was a dancer at one point in her life.
or
That's
maybe
why
she
has
wasn't.
No
She wouldn't
toenails.
answer the questions though. She wouldn't answer them. So he kept on kind of bringing stuff up, and she'd be like, and she just kind of hum her way through the whole thing.
He
That
also
does not
said
negate the fact that those toes were kind of gnarled, non-existent, like horrible little things. Kind of got. I've got pretty gnarled up toes.
Wait, why are we talking about toes?
I don't know, because I thought it was like the
Well,
crux
here's
of
another
that
thing:
moment.
is when during the scene he explains that it'll completely turn him off if a woman has funky toes. Yet he still loves her.
Okay.
Just saying.
Well, that is the meaning of true love, though, isn't it? You know.
Even those ugly toes are beautiful to him
Yeah. I mean, I guess so.
because love.
Well, I mean, it's not really love, is it? It's sex. I mean, this is.
They
kind
love
of,
each other. I think.
I mean, they keep
through-
on just because they declare they love each other. It's purely because they're having sex with each other. They just seem to love each other.
You don't think.
If they really loved each other, they would get together and they would make steps and moves to make it work. But they're just kind of going through this perpetual cycle of just pretending that this is what they want, when really, in actuality, that's not what they want at all.
If it was, they probably would have tried harder.
Of course, they would have tried harder. That's also kind of the main motivation of the movie, is that kind of destination, that goal for them is completely unattainable.
It is attainable, but they just keep convincing themselves that it's not, because it's harder for them to face the reality of their marriage situation.
It's easier for them to get married to different people and have children with those people than it is to just commit to each other and just continue this horrible cycle of having an unrequited relationship. And then forever doubt themselves, and then on their deathbed, like, completely regret that decision later on.
Mistake.
Oh my god, I loved you so much. Why didn't I just stay with you? It's like, give me a break.
Well, the director's trying to pose an idea. What happens if you meet someone else in life that you love? And, can you love more than one person at the same time? Is it different love? Is it false? And what do you do? Because I don't think that she meant to fall in love with this person. I don't think he meant to fall in love with her either. But they kept forcing themselves into this situation, making it way, way more difficult. If you just had a one-off, a toodly-doo, and then it's over, then you don't, then it's fine. You can kind of think it away, I guess.
I
I
mean,
mean, it's not fine. It's still, you
yeah.
shouldn't do that.
You probably, you shouldn't be cheating on your spouse.
If you're cheating, I don't know, I'm blowing up cheaters out here, but I think that if you're cheating, there's obviously fundamentally something wrong with your own relationship.
Yes,
Unless
I
it's
mean,
an
I
agreed
guess
upon
so.
thing. I don't know. I don't know.
Yes. Well, the thing is, we're in the year 2023 now, so I mean, you can. The options, the possibilities are endless.
Right, of course. If you have an agreed upon situation where you can see other people, then obviously do that. But
Yeah.
these people are in monogamous relationships.
Or at
And
least
they
as far
know
as
what
we're
they're
aware.
doing that
Yeah.
would upset their partners.
It's also kind of falls under the kind of tropey like tropey affair movies in general. Like I don't know if affairs are as elaborate and as dramatic or as interesting as this one seemingly tries to be. I just kind of feel like it's either just like it's either shit or get off the pot. You know what I mean?
Because
It's
they
like,
do it a lot. Every fifth hotel room they're
Pretty
having
much,
a conversation
yeah.
about it, where you see it in time where he is seeing somebody and then he breaks up with her, and then he's seeing somebody else and then it gets serious, and she urges him to marry this woman.
Yeah.
And she says it's never going to work for us. But then there's times where she goes back and says, I should never have married him.
Yeah.
There's a scene,
Yeah.
and I know that we're jumping around. There's not.
There's not really a structure to this
No.
movie because it every single scene for the most part follows exactly what we've just spoken about.
They're all
They're all
contained
really much the same. Yeah.
scenes. Yeah, they're all pretty similar.
Yeah.
Except for that one Clockwork Orange scene that's all sped up.
It's the one scene that stands out like a sore thumb, and it's after a period of a lull where they're like, we can't see each other anymore, but then they can't stop seeing each other.
Yeah,
So then
there's
they
this
just end up just going back at it again.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of like after you've seen that 2 or 3 times, from like smaller moments in the scenes to like bigger moments that have like slightly more dramatic effect, you're kind of getting a little bit bored and tired of it. And this film's only 88 minutes long, and it feels like it's 2 hours by the 55-minute mark, or at
Yeah,
least
there
that's
was
how I felt when we looked at the
There was a
timer.
moment where you started screaming.
I
'cause you
almost
thought it
started
was over.
crying. Yeah, I thought I was getting very bored of it by that point.
Well, would you like to talk about a scene that happens about 36 minutes and 5 seconds into the film?
I mean, I was gonna talk about the pubes. Like, there was a bit where you saw her pubes, and you just started screaming pubes when we saw the pubes.
Did yeah, you don't get to lay your eyes upon that as much as maybe one would imagine.
I mean, to be fair, I'm not particularly interested in seeing ladies' pubes or man pubes in general. Like, I'm not a fan of my own pubes. I mean, to be fair, I just thought it was hilarious that you kind of just started screaming pubes.
Well, yeah, because
know.
usually in these films, I mean, we've seen so many of these at this point where, yeah, kind of seeing pubes is exciting now.
Yeah.
On a woman.
I mean, I guess so.
Get out the pubes. I'm
Anyway.
excited to see them.
We're talking about pubes. We definitely see some pubes coming up, like, right now.
Yes. So it's hard to
Yeah.
explain when this comes in. I know that it's 36 minutes into the film.
Yeah.
But there is a scene that I think people if you know about this film, that this is the most recognizable scene from the film.
Yeah.
Where they get out onto the balcony of their hotel and they are naked.
I'm
And they've been
hoping it's
drinking.
the balcony, because they'd been on the roof earlier.
They're on the balcony of their hotel
Okay,
room.
so they're a balcony.
And they're drinking wine. And I do believe that when they were filming this, they were also just getting drunk and drinking wine and doing
Yeah.
the scene. It's quite relaxed. So they get drunk and then they get a little bit fancy. And this whole thing, I believe, was Chris Messina's idea. Like, let's take our clothes off. Let's just get out there and let's dance. And let's just do this thing.
Okay.
So they get out onto the balcony and they're dancing. And then there's a point where he half kind of jumps onto the ledge of the balcony, which really freaked me out
Yeah.
because he's drunk.
Aye.
But then he starts yelling down at the people in the street and just asking, did your lives turn out just the way you thought it would?
Yeah, that was annoying.
You thought
Yeah.
well.
I thought it was a little annoying.
Oh, okay.
He's kind of saying it
I
from a
liked it.
position of power, and it's obvious he's
You
like,
think it's out of a position of power?
of course it is. It's
I
not
think
like
it
that
was
moment
out
in
of-
Almost Famous where he's like, I am a golden god. Like, he's all fucked up and shit, and you're just like, wow, that's pathetic. But But the thing is, he's projecting his own self to these people that he's asking the question for, because he's not happy with his own life.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's out of a position of power. I think it's out
No.
of a position
No, I'm
of
pretty sure.
feeling weak
I'm pretty sure the way that I said
or
it,
out of control.
yeah, the way I said it was incorrect.
Oh, okay.
So that's,
Well,
yeah, I'm
see,
admitting
that's
that now.
very strong
See?
of you to admit when you're
That
wrong.
is, yes. I mean, I'm always wrong. Anyway.
So he's dancing around. They're both naked, and yeah, you get a. This is the penis scene.
Yeah. It's fine.
And I guess in a question of whether or not it needs to be there, I don't know. It probably could have gotten away with it not being there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Contextually, I mean, this is a film about two people who meet up to have sex.
Right.
And when the film started, and the way that the film is kind of structured, at least from the off, like from the opening moment, it's like, we're fucking, and then it's just kind of continues down that thing. It's not particularly sexy, and the sex kind of just stops at one point where you don't really see any sex. There's not a lot of nudity. So really, it's all kind of front-loaded, I would say, the film.
Right, because if you're going in the context of how the relationship was, it was purely based on the physical aspects of their relationship,
Completely
which turns
based
into
off of
more
sex.
of a relationship.
Yes, the emotions start to seep in a little bit more.
Yeah, which is why I suppose they keep their clothes on a little bit more
Well, I brought
towards
up
the end.
I brought up the Winterbottom movie, 9 Songs, because I brought up Code 46 and stuff earlier on. 9 Songs, which is effectively just two people having sex set to a music festival. So kind of structurally, it's it's a little bit different, but at the same time, I was like, is this what this film is? Is kind of like, it's unrated. It's gonna have this this sense of like this relationship, this affair. It's gonna be incredibly candid, and we're gonna have these kind of messy conversations, and it's just basically gonna be very much focused on the sexual element, which this film just kind of doesn't have, really. Like, there's not that kind of, just stuff starts to kind of dissolve and disappear after a while.
What, the sex?
The sexy stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I was saying, I think it's just simply because it turned into more of them getting together because they had fallen in love and they didn't know what to do about that. It became less about the sex. There was a moment where he shows up at the hotel room late because his flight was delayed, and she's just asleep, and he makes jokes about doing like a sleep creep on her.
Yeah, well, he does bring that up. Well, the thing is, we're glossing over the rest of the dick scene, though.
I know, I'm going to come back to it.
There is that bit where they're back in the hotel room, and then I got a little bit of a fright because he just kind of pops up from the side of the door, and he's still completely stark bullet naked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, Joe, poo, penis.
Well, I'm trying to think about it in the way that, is this necessary? Does it need to be here? Does it add to the film? And I do think that this film is aiming to be, the truth, or give you kind of a real look into the character study of these two people who are forming this bond.
I would feel the film would be far better if it was more candid, if it was a little bit more open, if they were kind of doing this improvisational approach to the whole thing, that they would kind of like throw the punches and just kind of do what they wanted, and then the conversations themselves and like how they develop and how the relationship would develop, like there would be a lot more weight to what they were saying and how they were performing if the restraints were kind of taken off a little bit, because you do feel like there's a level of restraint with the film from start to finish.
Right. I do think that they maybe hung on to the script a little bit more than I would have expected.
Yeah.
When they're meant to be a little bit more liberal about it.
Yeah.
But in terms of the nudity, I know that Chris Messina was saying that he found it to be liberating, and also finding an actor to play against him that was willing to be that open with the nudity was Marin Ireland.
Marin Ireland, yeah.
So I do think that if you're having two people and the story is about them getting together and having this physical relationship that, turns into more emotional, that having them be clothed or covered the whole time would be a little bit strange.
Yeah, I think the
And it would be a cop out, I think, if it was strictly female nudity. It would be a huge cop out.
I'm going to put this out there. If the film was European or South American or from any other part of the world that wasn't the UK or the US, this film would be unremarkable in those circles. You see that sort of thing. You see that sort of liberalism in that kind of cinema.
I was reading some reviews where it was saying that this is basically a foreign film.
Yeah.
But made in America. If this had French subtitles, everyone would go, "Oh wow."
Yeah.
Amazing.
Isn't that deep? Yeah. It would be, yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at when we were watching it, was that it's distinctly unremarkable, but if it was, say, I don't want to use the word foreign, but if it was from a different region other than, let's say, the two main regions of the world, and the art that they create is incredibly conservative, it might have had a little bit more of a feeling of liberation about it that you could. And I feel like this is maybe a film that has been made in France or Europe or South America or any other part of the world that's not the US or the UK, and it's probably better, or at least it's handled a little bit more with a candid nature and a little bit more of an open nature. So I don't know. It's hard to kind of talk about this movie and talk about the story, and we're kind of just like picking out moments of the thing, because again, there's no real kind of driving force other than this back and forth, to and fro of, will they get together? Will they not get together? Oh, their lives are developing. She now has a baby. She's now falling asleep because she's too tired.
Okay, hold on a second.
Okay.
There are things that happen in the film.
Okay.
And you were just saying how she had a baby, right? So that's a pretty intense moment that happens in the film that, just because of how it's set up, packs less of a punch. It's another one of those, oh, I got a blowjob when I was a child from another young boy. And you gloss over it, and then the scene's over. There's another scene where she is telling him that she's pregnant and she's going to have the baby with her husband. And she tells him that she wishes it was his. So that's a big deal. That's a big deal when you're having this really, really long-term affair with somebody and you're getting quite intimate, and they are an integral part of their lives. And you're telling them you're going to have a baby. And that's kind of it. Well, she talks about her child later on, and her child becomes a really big part of her life.
Yeah. But
it doesn't seem...
The motherly instinct kicks in. Well, the thing is, let's extrapolate that moment then a little bit, right? So for him, the birth of her child is the death of their future, of their relationship. That's basically what's meant to feel like what's happening there.
Yeah, I mean,
she's putting the death nail in, being like, well, no, I can't get rid of the father because he's the father. And for you saying to me, oh, I wish you were the father, it's just a kick in the teeth. And the thing is a lot, like, and it's not to like defend the man in this situation, but a lot of like their major decisions, she's already married by the time they have an affair. So a lot of responsibility is put on her shoulders to effectively be the better person and to call it off, because Messina at this point, he's a traveling writer, he's got girlfriends, blah, 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 blah. To me, he is not committing the serious crime. Now, later on, he is married. He is committing a crime. They're continuing this whole relationship. They're basically on level peggings at one point. But to me, her stance on this whole thing, and certainly when she brings up the fact that she's having a kid, I find that whole situation, that moment in the movie, to be incredibly cruel.
Yeah.
And I find her to be the most selfish, if we're on like a gradient scale of selfish behavior.
He asks her several times, why don't we just do it right now? They had the opportunities. And I keep bringing up, and I brought it up while we were talking about the film, and I think it's a Louis C.K. sketch, and it's about how it's like...
We bring him up sparingly on this podcast for obvious reasons, so...
And I'll have to make sure it's actually his sketch, or his...
I might have just made it up. I have no idea.
Well, it's talking about when you want to break up with someone, and you're dating someone, you kind of want to break up, but then you somehow make it worse by moving in with them, and then you want to break up with them, and then you make it worse by getting married, and then it continues on. Then you end up having a kid, and then you have a kid, and then you want to get a divorce, and it just makes everything messier. It's just pull that Band-Aid off. If you're not happy in your relationship, just get it over with.
Yeah.
Because you're hurting so many people. You're not just hurting yourself and your partner. Like, there's more people involved than that.
Yes.
I mean, focus on yourself, make yourself happy, but it just seems, yeah, she does kind of seem, she shows remorse and she cries about it, but she still continues on in this dalliance, and
it's hard to be
doesn't really
sympathetic.
consider.
Yeah, it's hard to be sympathetic to her tears when she's kind of going around saying like, I think I'm a horrible person. It's like, honestly, you sound like a liar. It just doesn't ring true, and it's a lot of like this lack of attraction towards kind of these two main characters, at least for me.
Because there are blow-ups that happen strictly on Messina's part where he is frustrated at the situation, and he is screaming at her because she's not texting him back.
Yeah.
It really does seem like she is in it just for the sex a lot of the time.
Yeah, pretty much. He's obviously looking for an emotional attachment to this person. And
she's sparingly giving out any information about herself. He
originally is the first one to say that he loves her, and then that spurs her to say it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't really ring true when, I guess, the rest of the mumbling conversations continue and they have arguments, sparing arguments, obviously.
It is rough, some of the arguments they have. And I mean, I was saying to you, because you'd said, I would never speak to you like that. And I go, yeah, it would be divorce. He's hitting walls and he's screaming in her face.
Yeah.
Simply because she didn't text him back.
Yeah,
earlier
it was all
in the
about
film,
a text message. Yeah,
and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah,
I don't adhere to that type of violence.
But I guess, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't speak to you that way. We're in a, well, I was gonna say we're in a relationship. We're married. Like our relationship has, comparatively, certainly in my own life, has been such an easygoing and natural experience for me. For these,
thanks, dear.
For these people, well, the thing is, like it doesn't need explaining. It's like when we decided to get married, we just had an off the cuff conversation about it, and we were just like, well, that seems like the natural progression of what we're going to do. Not to feel robotic about it, but to us, we've never really suffered any surprises in our lives in this relationship. You know what I mean? We've just kind of dealt with it as adults, and we're kind of doing it.
It's almost as though in their relationship in the film that they never established those type of rules or boundaries. Do you know what I mean? So that's why she's kind of keeping it close to the chest, and he is just exploding because they've never had that type of time to understand what her boundary lines are and what his are.
No.
So, I think that people would typically have those if they spent more time together. Because he says at one point, I get you 1, 2, maybe 3 days, and then I don't see you for so long. Yeah,
but also I kind of feel like they're not setting up those boundaries because they're just not taking the relationship seriously enough either.
Right.
So,
especially not
certainly
her.
Since it's predicated on the fact that even like later on into the film's life cycle, effectively, is that it is predicated purely on the sex thing, which is when we bring up jokes about like the sleep creeping.
Yeah.
Because that's all he seems to be interested in, is he's just going to have sex with her while she's asleep.
Oh, no, I do really think that he wanted more out of it, which is why those kind of explosive emotional reactions from him, they do come out of left field a bit. They feel a little bit out of place in the film because she is so muted most of the time.
Yeah, it's back to this riveting piece of drama.
There is a moment, so they start kind of asking each other a little bit more about their relationships, and they start little by little kind of giving each other more information. There's a moment later on in the film, really quite close to the end, where he asks her, how does my penis compare to your husband's?
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
And I think she just kind of giggles, and I go, dude, if you're in that type of situation, keep it to yourselves. You don't need to know about her husband. You don't need to know about her kids.
Well, I think he's being deliberately combative, though.
Oh, no, of course, because it's a dick measuring contest. He says it right in the beginning of the film when she calls him to have, another tryst. And he's like, is it because of my penis? Because you miss my beautiful penis or whatever. So.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a class act.
I laughed when he said it.
Yeah,
but still, it's kind of, that can't feel good for her.
No, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's like unrequited bonerage. Like, this is all this kind of is. Like, it just continues for months and months and months and months, and they just torture each other. Yeah,
years.
Just torture each other as they're going through their own like relationships, because they obviously need relationships.
There's
in their
even
lives.
A moment where she's on the bed with him, and she's on the phone with her husband and on the phone with her child.
Yeah,
like it's just a casual thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's rough for me. It's like you have your husband on your ear so close to you while another man's kind of draped around your body.
Yeah.
I'm like, oofed. That's just rough.
It is pretty rough. And I mean, I think, yeah,
sad.
they're suffering. They're suffering through this moment that they're just like, they're feeling so guilty of the situation and what they're putting people through. But yeah, I mean, the people in their lives are none the wiser, which tends to be the case with most affairs. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been cheated on yourself, Laura, but I definitely have done.
If I have, I never found out.
Yes, and I guess like that is the crux of what's going on there. I mean, what else is there to cover here?
I genuinely have two things I want to say before I have fun facts for you.
Is it about her scalding her hand?
No.
She does do that. That's such a tropey thing as well. She's like, I feel terrible about myself. She tries to scald her hand under the hot tap. I'm like, right, okay, whatever. Give me a break.
That was weird. There is a second moment where the man blows up. It's man and woman, by the way. They don't have names, so it's man, woman, classic. But there's that last moment where he blows up at her because they have an appointment to meet up at a conference she's doing, but her husband comes along. And so she has to run to the man's room and go, listen, we can't have sexy times because my husband showed up. And the man goes, well, we need to tell him now. It's over. Let's tell him. Let's get this out of the way. Let's get this whole ship a-sailing so we can be together. And she just says, I'm never going to leave him. I thought you knew that by now. I'm never going to leave him. The man freaks out. He just absolutely blows up, but he's like punching walls. He is pushing her with all of his might out the door. I hated it so much. You're physically being violent with her at this point. And
yeah,
I don't know. She kept saying she's never going to leave her husband. And I'm like, maybe you're making the right decision because this guy seems like he's out of control. He calls her a cunt.
Yeah, but here's the thing. She comes back, and I mean, not to like reference the end of the movie, but they make a decision, like a pact, to within 6 months' time be together full time.
I highly doubt that.
Well, I guess that, like I say, there's obviously like this this continuous vicious circle that they have found themselves in of ordering exploding chocolate cake and continuing on with this facade that everything's okay in their lives. But I mean, that scene's weird anyway. There's a strange shot that holds on her. Obviously, they couldn't get a shot of her just turning to look at him, so they did it in reverse. Of him, obviously a shot of her looking away from him, which looks odd as fuck.
That was very strange.
Yeah, you ever see someone blinking in reverse? You can tell. But yeah,
it's a weird thing to have happened. Do you know how many hours of footage they had to edit?
Probably thousands.
Oh, they had like 49.
They had 49 hours of footage?
Yeah.
That's not a lot for a feature.
Oh.
For an 88-minute feature? That's not a lot.
Okay, well, I thought that was a lot.
Oh, no.
I'm not a filmmaker.
No.
I'm an anthropologist.
That's like child's play in comparison to some filmmakers who...
They had different endings that they filmed. I mean, they didn't even know what the movie was going to look like when they finally had it together. They had several different endings. They had different content.
Because this film just kind of ends.
Correct.
Yeah, it just kind of ends because it started as a kind of wandering mess. It ends as a bit of a wandering mess with some level of resolution. And I say that in very commas, resolution. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's a claustrophobic piece of filmmaking, but I just don't the thing at the heart of it, the fundamental crux of the film is their relationship, and I just don't think it's great.
Okay.
Yeah, just don't think it's great. It doesn't ring true. But yeah, I mean, he's at one point. I mean, I don't know. I kind of lost myself in the movie. A point where he's got like a shirt. He's got one of those funny shirts on that hangs really loose, and it has one of those like loose polyester pockets. That if you were to put anything in it, because it's obviously really really small as well. So if you put anything in there, it's falling out. It's falling out if you bend over. It's
Yeah.
falling out if you sit down. It's falling out if you lie on your bed.
You are not a fan of useless pockets.
Fuck no! It should always have a lid, and I have a button just so in case like you find yourself in a scenario where you're like getting jostled or moved around or whatever. You know,
Bend
like
over to flush a toilet. If
bend
you
over
put
to
a
flush
phone
a
in
toilet.
there,
Put a phone in there.
drops right out. In
Yeah,
the toilet
it's
bowl.
like only a third of your phone is in that pocket, and it's just obviously it's useless. It's a useless pocket.
It's fashion, Ryan.
Fashion.
It's called fashion.
Fashion. Well, someone has to get on the phone to Messina and be like, "What were you thinking when you put that top
They probably
on?"
brought their own clothes.
Yeah, probably.
So
He'd be like, "Well, I was in You've Got Mail, fool. What have you done?" So, all right, okay, sorry, Chris, Christ.
So I have some fun facts about the movie. Are you excited?
Oy.
So I'm very excited about this specifically because of who is involved. But Chris Messina and Matt Ross are very good friends with Sam Rockwell.
Oh, good.
And so Ross had written kind of a spec script where the character was drunk the whole movie. And Ross asked Sam Rockwell if he was interested in doing it. But Sam Rockwell had just played like 3 drunk dudes in films like in a row.
Okay.
So he goes, well, what about Chris? And they were kind of casual friends at the time. Like Messina and Matt Ross were acquaintances. But they became good friends and they spoke together. They didn't want to do that particular drunken script. So they started on 28 Hotel Rooms together. So they collaborated on it, and that's how this film kind of came together.
Okay.
The filming took 18 days. And
Okay.
Matt Ross said that the idea of kind of shooting this film in a non-traditional manner came from when he worked on that George Clooney film, Good Night and Good Luck, that George Clooney directed.
That movie's good.
Yeah, so he's in that film, and so I guess one day they were all sitting together, kind of the supporting cast, and George Clooney came over. He goes, I know you guys have the script, but why don't you just wing it? Just kind of do whatever. And they were all horrified, and they kind of kept sticking to the script for the most part. And then George Clooney is like, seriously, guys, just have fun. You know your characters. Just do whatever you want. So it became a thing with that particular film where the main cast was scripted traditionally, and he ended up getting the whole supporting cast to basically improvise a lot of their stuff.
Okay.
For Good Night and Good Luck. So he liked that, so he wanted to kind of bring that type of thing into this film.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword though. Like, because I've done similar things to that where you have to give people enough to work from, but then to just kind of simply be like, wing it, see what you can do. It can be a fucking disaster, and for the most part, it is. You end up shooting footage that you don't need to shoot, and
Yeah, well, that's what happened.
You're like,
here,
I never
for sure.
really want to use it, and you're just kind of like, well, okay. So you always have to, when you're doing that improvisation stuff, or at least that's the way I kind of feel you do it, is you give them a starting marker and you give them an ending marker, and you try and feed them things in between, so that you're giving it a journey, because then otherwise it's like the film Jerry. I think we brought it up last time. It's just 2 folk wandering around in the desert, not really fucking doing anything, and it just kind of ends. So you kind of have to be a little bit more structured with it. And I don't know. You can tell if something's improvised, and this film is almost 100% like has the air of that improvisation stuff in it.
Well, he attributed his kind of style and inspiration for this film
Hmm.
on John Cassavetes and Mike Lee.
That's fine, but that is a hell of a lofty goal to kind of set yourself to be on there on stage with the likes of fucking Mike Lee and John Cassavetes. Two very accomplished filmmakers. And also, I'm going to put this out there as well. I know quite a lot about Mike Lee, and I know probably a lot more about John Cassavetes and their processes and stuff like that. But it's not as simple as just saying to someone, wing it, and then gold seems to happen. That does not happen with those guys whatsoever.
Well, we're making assumptions about what it was like on set. I don't know how
Who
they
knows?
got through this.
Yeah, who knows?
I doubt he said wing it.
I hope
Because
not.
don't forget that this man has worked with the likes of Scorsese and John Woo. Who
Right.
else? Clooney.
Clooney. John Woo, Clooney. What else is he fucking...
All the big ones.
Mary Harron,
Obviously.
who did American Psycho.
5 stars.
Who else? Who's he fucking worked with? Terry Gilliam.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know. Can you read that quote that he says? It irritates me slightly of his transition from being an actor to being a director. That quote kind of irritates me slightly.
I don't know if I have it written down. Did I say it to you earlier?
You did say it to me earlier, and I was just kind of like, oh.
Well, because he started out as a stage actor, and someone had asked him, "How did you transition from acting into directing?" He goes, "Well, I've worked with these directors, and and being an actor." I don't know. He said something like that. What was annoying about that?
I think it was just kind of more like, well, you know what? It would be easier for you when you've got access to these well-established, credible directors out there to make that viable transition into being a director yourself. Of course you would. Of course you would. You know? It's like, oh, I've worked with Scorsese, Gilliam, and things, and I felt like I could give it a go as an actor. You're already within those circles, sir. Of course you can. It's not out with the realms of possibility for you to do that. You know, but
Yeah.
it's very much kind of clues into me. It's the who you know in the industry. It's not what you know. It doesn't really matter what you know. It's who can put you in the right door at the right time to give you that opportunity.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. We're yet to cover Captain Fantastic. I don't know if it's at the same levels of what 28 Hotel Rooms is, but
I want to tell you right now.
as debuts go, 28 Hotel Rooms is a little dull.
Captain Fantastic is exactly like it says in the title. It's fantastic.
Okay,
It's a fantastic film.
Captain.
Did you? This does not have any awards. Just want to throw that out there so we can do our
well, I'm not
ratings
saying that
if
that's
you're
a
ready.
surprise, but well, no, I did have that one thing. You remember that scene where there's music playing in the hotel room? We weren't too sure where the music was actually coming from, but then I thought someone's phone was ringing.
That was a terrible song.
It was really bad. Like, I had a kind of like systematic beeping in it that kind of sounded a little bit like a pager or like a very old text tone on like a Nokia 3210.
In terms of sound design, or soundtrack score, there isn't really much of anything.
It's because it's trying to depict real life, Laura.
There's two
There's
instances of songs.
There's not
in the film.
not a soundtrack to your life. It's not like you walk
Wish.
into the kitchen and you hear bum 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 bum.
I
You know, that
really
doesn't happen.
hope that sound would never happen if I was walking around the house. I'd be, especially to the kitchen, right? Bum 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 bum. Looking for a tasty snack.
Exactly. There is no. Well, we
love
could
tasty
we could
snacks.
go into like a debate about like diegetic and non-diegetic sound and stuff like that, but we don't need to. We don't need to. That's the thing. That's that debate, and we're not going to go into it just now. But soaps do that really well. At least UK soaps do that really well to like characterize their environment, and that you hear like a song playing on like a radio and stuff like that. Like that stuff really helps to flesh out moments and make them feel more real, which is what probably could have happened in this movie.
Yeah. So in terms of rating, I'll go ahead and go first if you're ready.
Yeah,
you're ready
you go.
for me?
You go first, so you can be the sounding bar to my.
I'm just going to do them
whatever it is.
both.
Yeah.
So in terms of the visibility and context for that male nudity, I'm going to give it a 4. I'm
Okay.
going to give it a 4 Because there were
The
times.
only scene in the movie of any worth.
Yeah. Well,
is
it does
his nude
happen
scene.
twice, which I didn't actually catch the second time, which is kind of why I downgraded a little bit. I go, okay, there's two scenes
It's kind of a continuation of that moment,
or
though,
two
so it's slightly
shots.
different. Yeah, it's a continuation.
The
so it doesn't
balcony
really
scene I
matter.
really liked. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. It was nice almost for once to see these characters just like letting loose, because if you're having an affair,
Yeah.
you want it to be an affair.
Your
You want to have a
inhibitions
fun
are
time.
Yeah, your inhibitions
You're
are
you're letting loose your
floaty.
you're being your true self with somebody
Aloof.
else. You have no responsibilities in this moment. You're
Yeah.
completely free. And these people are totally free. They're naked, they're dancing, they're drinking, they're having a great time. So for that, I can appreciate that. That seemed like a great time. It seemed like something I would like to do.
Yeah.
Just get out there on a tall building and just shake my rump a little bit and scream at people on the street. I don't know, it sounds like fun. So
Okay.
4 stars. Again, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier in terms of, is it necessary? Did it need to be there? I do agree it would be a bit of a cop-out if you have too much female nudity
Yeah.
to not reciprocate that. I think that is unfair.
Yeah, but
So-
this film doesn't really do that anyway, I don't think.
No, it's not. Despite how they are naked quite a bit, I never found it to be gratuitous.
No, there's not an
Or-
imbalance. But,
No.
well, there could have been more of it. I
Yeah,
feel like.
that's true.
Yeah, that's probably my only argument with
Because
it.
I do think if you're in a hotel room, you act differently in hotel rooms as well. And it's not just about the affair, but when you're in a hotel room, you do things a little bit differently. It's not like you're at home.
I wouldn't feel the need to get dressed
No.
if that's what I was doing. Like I would be naked the entire time.
You open the door, you beep beep your key, you
Mhm.
pop in there, you close that little security lock, clothes
Yeah.
are off, and you're just naked in your hotel room.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Pretty
So
much.
yeah, you are right. There probably could have been more from his end.
It could be slightly more like liberal and a little bit more like liberating in the way that like because it just feels like the scenes themselves feel like they're blocked in such a manner that doesn't really let them run loose enough, and for
Yeah.
a lot of the times, a lot of it, because it's mostly conversations, you're just focused on mid shots of them or or close-ups of their face, and it's kind of like, right, okay, and it's not like it didn't seem like they were going for a specific rating. There's nothing particularly gratuitous in the stories that they're telling, other than the out of left field ones that we heard when we were watching the movie about like child abuse and stuff. You're
Yeah.
like, fuck, and it's never brought up again.
Yeah, I mean,
But this isn't like Clerks. Let's put it that way, where like a lot of the gratuity comes from the filth that they're spouting.
right.
Here it's not really that. It's not really any of that happening. So, you kind of wonder like, what was the direction they were trying to take it in, and like, why did they feel the need to set such firm boundaries on themselves? When it felt like this film kind of really could have blossomed from being a little bit more liberating.
Which is interesting because of how the director wanted it to be, and
Yeah.
especially how Chris Messina wanted it to be. The original intention was to be free, loose,
Yeah.
liberal, and really kind of get down to a character study of these two people in this
Yeah.
situation. So I agree with you. I think they could have pushed those boundaries a little bit more.
Certainly when it's just a series of scenes set in rooms with 4 walls on them and a door.
Yeah, make it bigger.
You
I mean,
can
you're in
just-
such an enclosed environment.
Yeah,
Like,
and I don't
have
mean
fun.
take it out of the hotel rooms. They kind of take it out of the hotel rooms sometimes, and there's obviously only so much you can do in the hallways of these hotel rooms.
Like punch exit signs.
I mean, yeah, we've all done funky shit. But I mean, at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm also
You're in a
kind
hotel,
of
you
like,
act different in a hotel.
I'm
That's
like-
what I'm saying.
you're an actor. Like, there's a space that you're able to perform in. Allow them to perform in that space. Like, unless maybe it was the cinematographer who was making sure that, like, look, if you exit this particular part of here, then you're going to be out of the light and you're not going to be seen as much. But it looked like it was being lit relatively quite naturally with just the practicals and whatever was coming in from the windows. So I don't really fully understand why the framing and the staging had to feel so constrained.
I'm wondering if there's just a lot of really cool natural scenes that we aren't getting because they didn't feel like it pushed the story anywhere.
Potentially, but unfortunately, what they did include didn't really push the story anywhere either. So I'm kind of
Correct.
just like, eh. So
Which
for me, yeah. So for me, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like I kind of say my piece with it. It should go further.
which brings me to my rating of a healthy 2.5.
Yeah.
So I think I've explained why.
Yeah.
Would you like to go, Ryan?
In terms of the context and the visibility and things, I've already kind of explained that, but I would probably give it like maybe a 3 or a
Okay.
3.5. I think it's fine. I think the film would benefit from having more of it, and I think at that point it would be a little bit more memorable if it did have more nudity in it. But let's say it took more of a Bertolucci approach, where it kind of has a balance of male versus female, so it doesn't feel too kind of female exploitative in that kind of sense.
Yeah, it would definitely would have been more beneficial to have that casual nudity, especially
they're-
casual hotel nudity.
Just normal. Like that stuff
Yeah,
is
casual
relatively
stuff.
quite natural. Like that's something I would do. That's something you would do. That's
Yeah.
something that we do together.
That we do.
Well, we do.
We
So
do that.
you know, and like if you're a couple, unless you know you've put very firm boundaries on your relationship in real life, and it's like, well, I'm never going to see her tits. You know, like all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's fine, Matthew. Open the door just a little wider.
I
Just
don't
a
know
little
why this
wider.
reminded me. We were talking about casual nudity and boundaries on your relationship. I remember when I was dating this guy, just out of high school, and he was gonna bring me over to his parents' house. And he goes, "I gotta just stand outside for a second. I gotta go inside and make sure my dad's not naked."
Oh wow, okay.
Middle of the day, and I
Mm.
was like, "What?" Because that was never like this young man I was seeing at the time saw his dad naked constantly.
Yeah.
And that was never, ever, ever something that happened in my house.
No.
Ever, which I found fascinating. So anyway,
Yeah.
casual nudity. People
Yeah.
do it.
Well, I think,
Even around their children.
to be honest, that's kind of a step beyond what we're talking about just
I know,
now.
it just reminded me of it.
It's
Made
a
me
little-
laugh.
It's a little creepy. I'm not going to kind of put it. Yeah, it's a little weird. That's kind of like one step removed from the family in Texas Chainsaw. But anyway, look, well, no. So I mean, I would, you know, I settle on the same rating as you do for the movie.
Okay.
Straight down the middle, 2.5. I do think some of the stuff looks nice.
Yeah.
I think the intention, you know, is kind of there. It's just a shame that it's just not. There's a story. There could be a story there. There could be
Absolutely.
more to it than just we're having an affair, and the conflict that comes from having the affair. You know, there could have been a lot more exploding chocolate pudding. Like there could
Sure.
have been all sorts of different things that they could have done with it, and I think there's films of this type that just do it better. I would say a better adaptation of this kind of idea, and I mean we've seen it already once before, but it's like Scenes of a Marriage. I would say is a far more riveting experience about the dismantling of a relationship, in this case obviously a marriage. And you can take either version, the Bergman version or the modern day version with
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar
and
Isaac and
Chastain.
Jessica Chastain. So
I think you're right, and I agree that there's a lot more that could have happened, and I do think that there's a good story there, but maybe the execution isn't as good. But it's a good effort, you know, I suppose.
yeah, it gets a B for effort,
Yeah,
I guess.
There are some nice shots.
It's a strong C plus.
it's a good first try.
It's a good
So
first
we get to
try.
see in a couple of weeks what his second effort looks like.
Yes.
And we get to talk about Vigo again.
Yay.
Yay! Anyway, well, thank you, Ryan. I'm happy to be here with you in the coming years, our third year that we're starting doing this podcast.
This'll be its second full year.
Correct.
Since we started in the middle of 2021. So
We sure did. Thanks
Either
for
way.
hanging on with this, guys. It's so nice, and
yes.
we hope you enjoy our New Year's Ross-o-lution.
Yeah, I think that's honestly genius. I'm
Thank
surprised
you.
we came up with that one. Yeah, that was really good. But yeah, no, thank you for dealing with our ramblings and our musings almost to the exact same length of this movie.
Ah, shit, we did it again.
Yeah, we
really
did it
thought
again.
we were going to be shorter this time. Well, anyway, coming to you from room 195, let's say. Who cares?
I don't think that was an actual room, was it?
Coming to you from room 1743.
They had rooms that were higher up. They never had ground floor rooms.
Oh, yeah, it's not a motel.
It's not a motel.
Coming to you from room 675.
Coming from
Oh, they wouldn't have a 6.
one of the several 28 hotel rooms because we need to shut this
No,
up.
they have a 6th floor. They don't have a 13th floor.
Cool. Most hotels don't have a 13th floor.
I mean, it exists.
It exists, but they don't. Yeah,
They don't list it,
they don't list it. Yeah,
which is so strange.
because of the fucking horrible deaths.
I have been Laura.
Ryan.
Thanks, guys, and we will catch you on the next Ross-o-lution.
We will. Yes.
Yay!
Yay!
Hooray!
Have you not seen Dark Water? Isn't that exactly what that is about? Like, there's bad shit. Like, it ends up in a water tower. You've seen that movie.
No, we did watch that movie. We watched both of them.
And the Cecil Motel
That
documentary. Yeah, about the true story of the poor girl. Anyway,
Does that have anything to do with the 13th floor? I thought that's just a superstition on the number 13.
Here's the thing, we'll probably cut this stuff out, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, there was a creepypasta online about like this elevator trick. And that's what they linked that creepypasta to, that poor girl who ended up finding herself
Oh my gosh. So if you type in number 13 superstition into the internet search, it says, some believe this is unlucky because one of those 13, Judas Iscariot, was the betrayer of Jesus Christ. Which we just watched Dracula 2000 the other night.
And we're not going to spoil it for you so you can watch it yourself. Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen Dracula 2000, I mean, we just watched it. So good. It's streaming online. You get it when you watch it.
Yeah, you could live without ever seeing it in your life.
You should not, but you
shouldn't. It's perfectly fine. Anyway,
it's great.
Put it this way, Gerard Butler plays Dracula. Anyway, that's the end of this episode, guys. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Yeah, bye.